and started to feel a little bit paranoid and was starting to experience those delusions of references. She was starting to see things and making them think that she needed to hurt herself, that she wasn't supposed to be in the universe, she wasn't supposed to be in the world. And that she reached out to her family, the family she was living with, and wasn't able to get help and was instead given CBD oil. And that once she started taking the CBD oil, that there was a big jump. She felt like it was very potent. That's how she felt. And that her paranoia and delusions of reference and magical thinking all increased sort of significantly and sharply after starting to take that drug.
Okay. Now, I'm going to kind of get to the CBD specifically. One of the things that you diagnosed her with was cannabis use disorder. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And is that based on the CBD that she was taking?
Yes, she believed that it had THC. Now I have no idea what was in the cannabis oil she was taking.
Right.
But she believed that it was intoxicating, and she continued to take it, and it was causing her significant distress.
Did she explain to you that the CBD that she was using was being given to her by the husband in her life, Mr. Ben Michael?
She did. She indicated that she had ordered some online, but that Mr. Ben Michael, I've been calling him Mr. Joy, so I'll try and whatever is most consistent.
We've got 3 different names for him,
yeah, so
we're
it's
trying
hard
to
to
keep
keep
it
up.
clear.
But she said that he did not want her to use the commercial one, so he brought her one that was produced by a friend or brought to him by a friend. She didn't really know the source.
Okay. So what she was using was one that had been, what she told you she'd been using was one that had been provided by a third party, not the stuff that she ordered.
Correct.
Okay. Is it fair, Dr. Garrett, that the use of substances, illicit substances specifically, can influence or increase someone's paranoia and delusions?
Yes. And even illicit and even legal drugs can do that. Anything that has sort of an intoxicating effect can negatively impact somebody's symptoms. So if you have, and cannabis is sort of well known for being something that causes people who don't have mental illness to have some level of paranoia. And so the addition of cannabis to somebody who has a pre-existing paranoia can increase, it can sort of ratchet that up and make that worse.
And your belief that the symptoms that she was reflecting to you in her earlier years or teenage years, were those caused by her mental health situation, or were those caused more by drug use?
It's difficult to say.
Okay.
It was a long time ago, so self-report is not hugely reliable for things that happened that long ago. But the way it usually works is either a substance can trigger an underlying mental health condition, can cause a new mental health condition, or can be a way of trying to medicate a condition that already exists. So those are the most common ways that we see, early mental health and substance use interact.
Okay.
Which one of those was at play in this case, I couldn't tell you for sure.
Now, you are familiar with the dynamic in which Ms. Driver was living during this incident that we're talking about in this case. Is that right?
Based on her descriptions.
Yes. Was that also information that you learned through other sources in this case?
There was some information included in witness statements given to the police that were summarized in the investigative summary.
Okay. And I don't want you to talk about anything those specific people said, but you're aware she was living in a polygamous or polyamorous relationship with Mr. Ben Michael, right? There were multiple wives in their relationship. That's something that you were aware of.
Yes, she told me there was another woman before her, but that she left, and that she went with Mr. Ben Michael, and then 2 other women joined later.
Okay. Did she describe to you, did Ms. Driver specifically describe to you the nature of how her relationship with Mr. Ben Michael was in the beginning and how it developed over the about three years she was with him?
She described meeting him when she was 16 years old, sitting at a bus station, I believe, and that she found him charming and intelligent and engaging, and he gave her his contact information, and about a year later, when she was 17, she reached out to him, and he accepted her in, and they began a romantic relationship at that point when he was 38 or 39 years old.
Does the age discrepancy between Mr. Ben Michael and Ms. Driver at that time, did that cause you concern, or did that play into your consideration of her evaluation?
Yeah, it was one of several factors. Between her sort of unstable childhood, the sort of push and pull with her parents, returning to her parents, leaving her parents, things like that, her substance abuse, and her young age, all made her, in my view, particularly susceptible to wanting to be with somebody who's older and willing to take her in and protect her and things like that. So I felt like that may have been a factor in why she chose to join this group.
Okay. Did she describe to you the nature of the relationship she had with Mr. Ben Michael early on when they met?
A little bit, not a lot. She did indicate that he got her off all drugs, that she was supposed to be very clean and was not able to use drugs anymore, that she tried marijuana one time at a drug circle and got in quite a bit of trouble for it, and then never did anymore again until a couple months before this incident. And that she basically described, him being a partner, that it was good, and that she believed the things he told her, and that she accepted the lifestyle.
And she accepted the lifestyle when the other two women came in to that group. Is that?
That's my understanding. We didn't talk about that in any kind of detail. She did not express any dissatisfaction with their presence. She talked about them being there, but she didn't say anything positive or negative about it.
Okay. And at some point in time, they had a child. Mr. Ben Michael and Ms. Driver had a child together.
That's correct.
Hannah in the context of this case, right? Was Ms. Driver ever able to explain to you any difference in their relationship once the child became involved?
I think she started to become more concerned about having a normal life for her child once she had a child. She was concerned that there was no prenatal health care, that there was no birth certificate, that there was no Social Security, that there were no vaccines. And she she described to me sort of feeling like she was concerned that her baby wouldn't get a normal life.
Okay. Stability is something that she was looking at?
It seemed that way.
Okay. You were aware that their living arrangement, they didn't maintain a set home.
She described them as nomadic.
Yes. Going back to the medication issue with Ms. Driver, your records that you reviewed while she was at the jail, you said that they tried her on different medications at various times. Is that common when trying to treat someone with mental health illnesses?
To a certain degree, there was more fluctuation in hers than I would normally expect to see. Whenever you give somebody a medication, you don't know, everybody responds to medications differently. So they start at a low level and they increase, and if there are side effects, they may try a different medication, and then they have to start over again at a low level and increase up to a therapeutic level. Symptoms may change, they may have to address different things as things go along, they may have to add a new medication in to address any kind of side effects. So there's always some adjustment. In Ms. Driver's case, there was more because she did not believe in taking medications and did not want to take medications, so she would get better, and as soon as she was better, she would say, well, I don't want medications, I don't need medications. And they would try to explain to her, the reason you're feeling better now is because you're on medications. But she didn't want to take them, so she was taking them sporadically and consistently, and they would lower the dosage to make it less impactful on her mental state. And then they would have to change it again because her symptoms would flare up. There would be a change in her symptoms after that.
Is that common generally for people that have mental health illnesses, have issues with them taking medication?
Yes.
Is it common for people with mental health issues to basically believe that they're okay? They don't recognize their own issues?
That's actually a symptom of schizophrenia. Yeah.
Right. And I guess more particularly so in a case for Ms. Driver, excuse me, who had a lifestyle leading up to this circumstance of not wanting to take pharmaceutical medication at all, right?
That's my understanding.
Okay. And further than that, someone that is not taking medication consistently and refusing to cooperate with that treatment plan, that can further, I guess, delay the ability to get treatment for those particular illnesses. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And did you see that in Ms. Driver in this case?
There was some indication of that because whenever she would reduce her medications or go off her medications, her symptoms would become more evident. And she was on suicide watch several times for long periods of time. She had to be restrained because of self-harm behaviors. She put in strapped into a chair. They have a restraint chair that they can kind of roll around, you know? And they had to put her in one of those because she was hurting herself.
Okay. What ultimately did you diagnose Ms. Driver with in this case?
Schizoaffective disorder, borderline personality disorder, and the cannabis use.
And we talked a little bit about that, so let's focus more directly on the schizoaffective disorder. What is that? Can you describe that for the jury, please?
Schizoaffective disorder is, a lot of people know about schizophrenia, so it's schizophrenia plus mood. Schizophrenia is when somebody has thoughts that are different than other people. They may, or perceptions that are different from other people. So they may see things that aren't really there, or they may hear things that when there's nothing to hear. They may smell things that aren't there. They may feel things walking on their skin or feel things in their body. So those are hallucinations. They may have delusions, which are fixed false beliefs that persist even in the face of contrary evidence. And that's usually not just, these conspiracy theories are bound these days, right? Everybody's got a theory about things. Those you can see how they developed, you can see what they're based on. When you're talking about a delusion, it's something more than that. It's when there's really no other explanation for their belief other than that they have a mental illness. So a lot of times it takes people are out to get me, people are out to harm me, or I have special powers. I can fly, I can see things, I'm smarter than everybody else. I spoke to one gentleman who was positive that he was the president of Mars. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at with schizophrenia. Plus you also get disorganized thinking. So they may change subjects without any indication of why. They may start out talking about the sky is blue, and then when the sky is blue, the leaves are green, and then the leaves die, and you end up talking about death. There's like these very loose associations between what they talk about, or they kind of flow off onto some different track, and it's hard to get them back. So that's sort of the disorganized thinking portion of schizophrenia. So when it's schizoaffective disorder, you've got the hallucinations, delusions, and thought disorder, plus problems with your mood. Depression, mania, and sometimes both. Sometimes they go back and forth. Sometimes it's just one or the other.
And what about the borderline personality disorder? How does that play in?
Borderline personality disorder is sort of a lifetime thing. It's characterological. Oftentimes it's triggered by some sort of trauma or some sort of feeling of abandonment in early childhood. But it's a pattern of behavior that starts in adolescence and continues throughout their life, whether in school, at work, at home. It's a consistent part of who they are. And it involves things like unstable relationships. So like Ms. Driver talked about having sort of a push and pull with her parents. She'd go back to her parents, she'd leave her parents, she'd go back to her parents, leave her parents. That is sort of indicative of an unstable relationship. It's also an unstable sense of self. So you might one minute think, oh no, I'm a good person. I'm a great person. I do good things. And then the next minute you might think, I am horrible. I'm a terrible person. And they hold all of this sort of at the same time. So it's they call it they call it a dialectic, where you try and hold these things, and that's sort of a big word, and I don't even know why I used it, but you try and hold all of this stuff inside, and it leads to aggravation, anger, impulsivity, and one of sort of the characteristics is sort of this need to hold on tightly to people in your life. They call it frantic efforts to avoid abandonment. And that's something that was even noted in the jail records when other people in jail when Ms. Driver started experiencing people at jail as sort of rejecting her or being critical of her, she would get suicidal and self-harming. That's that kind of thing we're looking at, where people will do whatever they can to keep people from leaving them. And so all of that sort of comes together to make a very unstable interaction both with themselves and with the world.
Now, in this particular case, were you aware that Ms. Driver had continued to have contact with Mr. Benyamin while she was in custody?
I had heard that occurred, yes.
Is that something that would be a consistent symptom of someone that has borderline personality disorder, as you just described it?
Yes, in my opinion it is.
Okay. Would that be more particularly heightened in a situation like this, where she viewed him as the leader of this group, this cult type of religious foundational group?
That plus just sort of the general stress that was in her life, all of those can increase that kind of thing.
Okay.